Chapter 1009 Regret. Especially for people with average talents, taking some of the best quality pills could break through the bottleneck and give them the hope of advancing again. How can such horrible and powerful medicinal pills not make everyone yearn for and scramble to buy? It was okay if they hadn't tasted it before, but now that they had tasted the benefits, they suddenly say that they were not available. Wasn't this killing them? Thinking of this, the eyes of these people looking at Lu Zixi and others with grievances. Of course, they hated Li Zhenyu more, but no one knew now that Li Zhenyu did all this for Lu Zixi. Wasn't their predicaments caused by Lu Zixi indirectly? Lu Zixi's face turned green and white. I have always been the favored one since I was a child. I have always accepted praise from the others. The others only have envy and admiration in their eyes when seeing me. When did I see such treatment? All this is because of Xi Yue. Lu Zixi took a deep breath, and she put up a gentle and moving smile before apologized slightly. You can blame Zixi for indirectly causing this to happen to you. I really feel sorry. I didn't expect that Mr. Xi and Elder Shen would be so ruthless. But she paused. The apology on her face turned into self-confidence and comfort. However, don't worry. You are hated by Mr. Xi more or less because of me. To apologize, as long as you buy medicinal pills from the pharmacies under the Doctors Association, you will have an 80% discount. Ren Shuling nodded vigorously and said, Yeah, why should you be threatened by that bitch? Who wants his medicinal pills? Is there still a shortage of medicinal pills in our Doctors Association? The people present looked at each other, but no one felt happy. They were still dejected. Even Ren Shuling and Li Zhenyu looked unsightly when they would be blamed by their families for not getting those best quality medicinal pills. Although there were many medicinal pills from the Doctors Association, how could those best quality pills be good? They heard that the Doctors Association bought a lot of this best quality pill and went back to study, but so far there was still no result. This result was expected. If the Doctors Association was capable of refining such magical medicinal pills, they wouldn't wait until now. They once again deeply regretted that they offended Xi Yue for Fairy Zixi. Early the next morning, Zhuge Feng sent Divine Soul Jade gratefully. She was very happy to get Divine Soul Jade. This was the purpose of their trip. With this Divine Soul Jade, she could restore Shaoqi's sanity a little bit. But Bai Hu and Gu Lufeng were happier than He, because they got Divine Soul Jade. It meant that they won the bet that involved the entire people of Yangon City. What they were about to earn would be the wealth of the entire Yangon City. Thinking about the dejected faces of those smug people who bet on Fairy Zixi before, Bai Hu felt very delighted. The two walked leisurely all the way in the direction of Chenglefang. When passing a pharmacy, an angry male voice came from inside. Why don't you let me buy the best quality pill? I ordered the bone muscle enhancement pill months ago. It's finally my turn to buy it. Chapter 1010. Couldn't buy medicinal pills. The staff in the store interrupted him mercilessly. Customer, if you have any questions, you can read the announcement of our shop. Our pharmacy is just a small business, and we still want to get the best quality pill in the future, so we don't dare violate the announcement. Not to mention, this news is from Qingxia sect. Please forgive me. What? Our Zhou family is on the blacklist, and we will not get the best quality pill in the future? Why? Before the staff could speak, a young discipline wearing Qingxia sect costume walked up and sneered. If you want to know, why don't you go back and ask your son or brother? I believe they must be very clear why did Qingxia sect and Shengda Hall blacklist them. The Zhou family person who wanted to buy the best bone muscle enhancement pill looked pale. Then he said angrily, Li Hai, come here. You are not from the Zhou family. Now order the best quality pills in this shop for me. Even if I have to wait 3 months, I'll accept it. A tall and burly man quickly walked out from behind the Zhou family person, and he said to the staff, I want to order the best bone muscle enhancement pill 3 months later. If 3 months is not enough, I can wait 4 months. I'm really sorry, customer. It's not that we don't want to sell, but, upon seeing this, Qingxia sect disciple couldn't help but sneer with his arms folded. Brother, if you are the servant of the Zhou family, then you are also on the blacklist. If not, then I advise you not to do this kind of stupid thing. Because the announcement is very clear that if someone resells medicinal pills to people in these families, they will also be blacklisted once they are found out. If you bought medicinal pills for someone from the Zhou family, then from then on, your Li family will no longer be eligible to buy medicinal pills produced by Qingxia sect and Shengda Hall. As soon as this statement came out, the burly man named Li Hu staggered, and his hand that had been stretched out also retracted like he was getting an electric shock. The man surnamed Zhou stared in horror. Then he looked at Li Hu viciously. I ask you to buy medicinal pills, do you hear me? But this time, no matter what he said, the burly man named Li Hu dared not say one more word. Although he himself, as the martial artist hired by the Zhou family, had long given up to advance, he had a precious son with great talent. Li Hu still wanted to earn enough money to buy the best quality Meridian's cleansing pill in the future. If I can't work in the Zhou family, I can just work for another family. But if I can't buy the best quality pill in the future, how can my precious son advance in the future? Seeing that Li Hu would no longer buy for him, and the onlookers pointed at him, verbally treating them from the Zhou family as scourges, the man surnamed Zhou was filled with hatred. He left bitterly with a red face. I must go back and check. To check clearly which little bastard caused me to not be able to buy medicinal pills, and to be ashamed in public. After watching the excitement, Bai Hu and Gu Lufeng continued to walk to Chang'e gambling house. On the way, Bai Hu couldn't help smiling next to Gu Lufeng and said, Brother Gu, your trick is really dirty. Huh. I didn't expect that, Brother Gu. You look gentle on the surface, but your heart is so black. Chapter 10:11 Det Note. Gu Lufeng looked at him coldly for a moment, then he smiled. Oh, don't worry, I will remember to convey these compliments to Nangongyu. What? What does it have to do with master? Bai Hu was taken aback for a moment, then he exclaimed, No way? Did the master come up with these ideas? Gu Liufeng's eyes flashed slightly, and he chuckled. The rules were indeed made by Qingxia sect and I, but thanks to your family master's reminder that I can think of such a vicious plan. Even this list was already given to me by him. You tell me, who is the one who really has a black heart? Bai Hu took a breath, his face turned pale. My master is really, it's too hard to describe. He usually hates those dirty tricks. Now, in order to stand up for the princess, he even came up with such ideas. TSK, I must be more respectful to the princess in the future. Otherwise, I might be hated by master and be punished severely. The two talked and laughed for a while, and they soon came to the Chang'e gambling house. When Gu Lufeng and Bai Hu took out the proof of the bet, all the eyes of the entire Chang'e gambling house focused on them. Everyone's eyes were full of envy, jealousy and hatred. However, Gu Lufeng and Bai Hu's strength was self-evident, plus the sanctions imposed on several families by Shengda Hall, which had been rumored on the streets of Yangon City in the past few days. Among them, even the most domineering Li family and Ren family in Yangon City were blacklisted by Shengda Hall. Now their families were in serious trouble. Many martial artists who originally worked for the Li family and Ren family resigned after hearing the news. Otherwise, this implication of the blacklist even banned them from buying. Therefore, whether it was the Chang'e gambling house or the people in Yangon City who participated in the bet, although they had lost all their crystal stones to Bai Hu and they hate him, no one dared to say anything. When Bai Hu counted the crystal stone he won, he was so happy that his mouth couldn't even close. Gosh. Even the storage ring and storage bag for shipping crystal stones are folded like a hill. Gu Lufeng and I have to transport these storage rings back by bare hands. These are 2 whole sacks of storage devices. Wouldn't we be exhausted to carry them back? Except for artifacts like Hushi's Void, other storage devices in Miluo continent couldn't be stored in stacks. In other words, storage rings cannot be placed in storage rings or storage bags that also have the Void attribute. Most of the storage devices on the Miluo continent didn't have much space inside, and the crystal stone covered a very large area. So in the end, they were packed with 2 large sack bags of storage rings and storage bags. Bai Hu laughed and couldn't help complaining to Gu Lufeng and scrupulously. The onlookers really wanted to beat this guy who got so many crystal stones, but he still complained. However, when Bai Hu saw a piece of paper he couldn't help but raised his eyebrows. What is this? The guy at the casino looked a little ugly. He whispered, This is the debt note written by Senior Lee. Debt note? Baihu squinted and smiled. When is it possible to use debt note for betting at the gambling house? And you actually took pay me with a debt note? Chapter 10:12. All crystal stones. The staff staggered with fright, took a few steps back and said bitterly, Senior, please don't be angry. But I'm helpless too. Your bet is too high. We have already paid you all the bets. But Senior Lee also placed a very high bet. No, it is very high. Without his debt note, our gambling house will go bankrupt. We really have no way. Baihu sneered and said, You have no way, then you want us to keep a blank paper. Before Baihu's words were finished, Gu Lufeng suddenly took the piece of paper from his hand. After taking a look, a deep smile appeared on his mouth. Just let it be. Baihu, let's go. En? What do you mean? We don't want all these crystal stones? This amount of crystal stones is very large. Who said we don't want it? Gu Lufeng turned around with his eyes flickering. The pair of eyes was indescribably charming. Didn't you see the stamp of the Li family? We will of course look for the one who owes us crystal stones. What's the point of troubling a small gambling house? Don't you think so? Baihu was taken aback for a moment. Then his eyes lit up with an incredibly carefree and sinister smile on his face. The two carried the bags containing the storage devices, then they hurried to the city lord's mansion without stopping. In the Lanxiang courtyard, Hushi and Nangongyu were playing chess. Hushi frowned tightly, and the white chess piece in her hand wasn't placed for a long time. Nangongyu, however, had a leisurely look, drinking tea while watching and admiring Hushi's frowning look. Little Egg, Little Golden Dragon, Little Dumb Cow, and Xiaoli were playing in the open space. Purple Abyss Vine was spinning in the air. Mo Xiaotu and Shen Qingchua surrounded Xiaoqi and taught him to speak and some simple movements. Suddenly, the door was pushed open. Baihu and Gu Lufeng carried 2 sacks, stunning everyone in the house. Mo Xiaotu couldn't help but stupidly said, Baihu Lufeng, did you use the crystal stones you won to buy spiritual rice? Why did you buy so many? Is Xi Yue going to cook a big meal today? Baihu and Gu Lufeng looked curiously at the crowd in the room, and they couldn't help but laugh. Baihu said, 2 sacks of spiritual rice? Little rabbit, stop you kidding, okay? Even if you gather all the spiritual rice of the entire Miluo continent, they don't even worth the 2 sacks in our hands. With that said, in the amazed eyes of everyone, Baihu dropped the sack and poured out all the things inside. Gu Lufeng also did the same. For a while in the room, there were endless clanging sounds. The people in the room were stunned by the scene. Even Qinglong, who had always been calm, couldn't help but widen his eyes and exclaim, Are these all crystal stones? Are you scared? Baihu smiled triumphantly. This is all the best that Princess won for us. TSK, when I first saw it, even my eyes almost fell out of fright. Little Egg rushed to the mountain with his short legs, pulled out a storage ring, and probed inside. Chapter 10:13. Clear the accounts soon. The crystal stone mountain, hundreds of times larger than the pile of storage rings, appeared in front of everyone. The shiny crystal stones exuded a strong spirit. With so many crystal stones piling up in the room, one could feel the spiritual power without using divine sense. The feeling was comfortable. Wow, there are so many crystal stones. Little Egg couldn't help but exclaim. He happily threw himself on the pile of crystal stones. Then he picked up a second-grade crystal stone and gnawed at it. Seeing this, the other little guys followed suit and happily rushed to the pile of crystal stones and rolled in it. Little Golden Dragon even took out a pile of crystal stone mountain from the storage device pile. Then he competed with Little Egg to eat the crystal stones faster. The little guys were divided into 2 teams at once. Little Egg teamed with Little Dumb Cow, Little Golden Dragon teamed with Purple Abyss Vine, and Xiaoli was the judge. All of a sudden, there were sounds of gnawing the crystal stones and the happy laughter of the little ones. Baihu's mouth twitched. Although I that master and princess always squander, although I also know that we won a lot of crystal stones this time, but no matter how many crystal stones, they shouldn't be squandered like this. Looking at the speed at which a few little guys gnawed the crystal stones and Princess' calm expression, they obviously gnawed a lot of her crystal stones. Alas, if I knew this, I would bet more. I should just mortgage several properties of the King of Hell Mansion in the Tiangang Kingdom first. Gu Lufeng was extremely calm. With Xi Yue's ability to refine medicinal pills, the amount of crystal stones she earns every day is beyond measure. So what if she wants to raise this group of foodies? My master has the ability and financial resources to support them. Who can say anything? However, he still counted the crystal stones bet by Nan Gongyu, Qing Long, by Hu and Qing Wan at the first time. Then he handed over the shares of the King of Hell Mansion to Nan Gongyu and others. After all, even brothers had to keep the accounts clear. Although Xi Yue was likely to marry Nan Gongyu, she must be on par with Nan Gongyu in terms of money and strength, let alone letting Xi Yue be looked down upon by King of Hell Mansion. Possible. Among all the crystal stones won, Nan Gongyu's share was definitely the most. Qing Long took 2 armfuls of crystal stones from Gu Liufeng's hands before finally accepting Nan Gongyu's winning bet. Compared to when Nan Gongyu took out the row of storage rings to bet, Qing Long's expression was all astounded all the time. It is great that Master can marry Princess. No, he hasn't married yet, and the Princess has already earned so much for Master. Such a huge amount of crystal stones. The industry under King of Hell Mansion may not be able to earn them in 1 year. If he marries her back, how strong the King of Hell Mansion would be. Nan Gongyu was not polite. He smiled and took out the crystal stones from the storage rings and put them in his storage device. Nan Gongyu's storage device was a decorative object similar to a rivet, but it was completely different from the ordinary storage device. This storage rivet was called Black House. It looked unremarkable on the outside, but it could hold more than the items of a city inside. Even if he put a mansion inside, it would only occupy a fraction of the space. Chapter 10:14. Ask for support equals. Of course, no matter how magical Black House was, it was nothing more than a storage device. It was not the same as Hushi's void. It couldn't be planted, nor could it be put in living things. It could only store things. At this time, the little guys had eaten the crystal stone, each holding a bulging belly, laying on the ground and shouting, "So full! So full!" Little Egg looked up and saw that most of the storage rings were missing on the ground. Then he looked at the hills in front of Nan Gongyu. He couldn't help but say, "Daddy, you are so rich. Even more money than Mom." As he said, he smiled and threw himself in front of Nan Gongyu, holding his feet, blinking his big eyes and saying, "Daddy, please support." Nan Gongyu smiled and flicked the storage rings on the table lightly. Soon a dozen storage rings appeared in front of Little Egg. Nan Gongyu chuckled and said, "The support fee. Remember to pack together with your mom and send it over." Little Egg was overjoyed when he saw the dozen or so storage rings. He didn't hear what Nan Gongyu said. After cheering, he threw the storage rings into the void. Then the calls of Daddy were even more affectionate. Hushi was speechless for a while. This little thing with no conscience, he is tempted by the enemy so easily. Why do I need this spiritual pet for? Bai Hu saw the dozen or so storage rings taken away by the little pink pig, and he felt so disheartening again. He wasn't reluctant to give them to Princess, but giving to these little guys was the same as being eaten away. This was such a waste. Suddenly, Bai Hu's eyes flashed, and he took out a debt note from his arms, and the pain on his face instantly turned into a sinister smile. Hey, what does it matter if there are less than a dozen storage rings? There are still a lot of crystal stones in the Li family waiting for us to collect. Thinking of this, Bai Hu immediately waved to Little Golden Dragon, Little Egg and Xiaoli. Then he took out the debt note and shook it in front of the little guys, whispering, "Little Egg, Little Golden Dragon, do you want more crystal stones?" Little Egg looked at the words written on it with shiny eyes. Little Golden Dragon sneered and said, "That's great. I was just worried that I haven't done enough for boss last time. This time we will take them back with interest." Gu Lufeng also smiled gently and said, "I don't know if the crystal stones of the Li family is enough to repay the debt note, but I heard that their family has a lot of precious magic weapons and medicinal pills accumulated over the years. I believe it will be enough to repay the debt." The few people and spiritual pets smiled at each other with their eyes flashing dim light. Hushi looked at these guys whispering and smiling secretly, and she couldn't help shaking her head. In a blink of an eye, she saw Xiaoqi standing by her side with a confused face, watching them discussing. His eyes were full of curiosity and slight envy. She sighed lightly, touched Xiaoqi's soft hair, and said softly, "Don't worry, Xiaoqi, one day, you can live like them, think and cultivate like a normal person. Sister assures you." Xiaoqi heard Hushi's voice, felt her gentle touch, and didn't notice what she said. He no longer bothered the people in the room. He hugged Hushi's arm, rubbed her shoulder and said, "Sister. Sister. I like sister the most." Hushi's heart was soft. As she was about to say something more, Xiaoqi's collar was suddenly pulled up. Chapter 10:15. Not brother-in-law, yet the clear purple eyes met the cold starry eyes of Nan Gongyu. Nan Gongyu sneered, "I remember that I warned you if you dare to throw yourself into sheer again." Before Nan Gongyu had finished speaking, Xiaoqi, who had always been quiet when facing Nan Gongyu, suddenly said, "No, you are not brother-in-law." Nan Gongyu's movements paused. He squinted slightly, and a dangerous aura exuded from him. Xiaoqi continued to say without fear of death, "You're not brother-in-law, not married, you can't control me." Puff. Hushi sprayed a sip of tea on the chessboard, took the silk kerchief from Qing Yuan and laughed as she wiped it off. Qing Yuan was also holding back her laugh, and she quickly cleaned up the wet chessboard. Nan Gongyu's face was gloomy like water was going to drip out, but he still put down Xiaoqi in the end. Once Xiaoqi was free, he immediately ran back to Hushi and made a grimace at him with purple eyes shining brightly. The smile in Hushi's mind was suddenly replaced by a feeling of touch. After getting Divine Soul Jade, Xiaoqi had just absorbed the essence of Divine Soul Jade. Maybe it was obvious as he just absorbed it, but now she had seen that Xiaoqi had become smarter and more like a normal person. Her only brother in the past and this life. Her brother who had suffered for her, she could finally do something for him. Xiaoqi felt Hushi's gentle gaze, and a bright smile appeared on his face. He crawled down, resting his head on Hushi's lap and whispering, "Sister. I like sister the most." Hushi bowed her head and kissed the tip of his hair, and she said with a hoarse voice, "Xiaoqi, sister also likes you, so you must get better, understand? You're the only relative of sister in this world." Qing Long couldn't help but glance at his master's face. Although his face was ugly, Nan Gongyu didn't do anything else or say anything this time. However, his gaze looking at the Hushi was hot and affectionate as if it would burn at any time. "Nan Gongyu. The only relative, huh? Then I will be Shier's only lover." The mansion of the Li family was located in the south of Yangon City. It had a strong spirit and a wide view. It was not far from the central street. It could be said to be the prime location in the entire Yangon City. At this time, it was just afternoon, the sun was still scorching the earth. The guards at the entrance of the Li mansion were a little dispirited. In the past few days, the Li family was chaotic because of not being able to buy the best quality pill. Coupled with Li Jianyu's embarrassing speech and actions in front of the entire Yangon City people, it put shame on the entire Li family. Regarding this matter, the Li family held more than a dozen meetings. Each time the topic was whether to expel Li Jianyu from the Li family in order to calm the anger of Sheng Dahal and Shi Yu. However, in the end it was still suppressed by Li Zongming, the current patriarch of the Li family and Li Jianyu's father. Moreover, Li Jianyu had the cultivation base of gold core stage at a young age, and he was also the elder of the Yunlan sect. Although he had been dismissed by the Yunlan sect, his identity and strength couldn't be underestimated. So now, the Li family was divided into two factions. One faction agreed to expel Li Jianyu from the Li family in exchange for the right of purchasing the best quality pill for the other children of the Li family. The other faction thought that they should take the opportunity to let Li Jianyu be the family master, to let him please the Doctors Association, so that the Li family could form a connection with the Doctors Association. Chapter 10:16. Debt repayment. It wasn't until midnight last night that the elders of Li family finally made a decision. They decided to give up the best quality pill, and instead please the Doctors Association. After all, the Doctors Association was so powerful. If they bootlicked the Doctors Association, the benefits they could get were by no means comparable to just a few best quality pills. But no matter which decision, it is an inevitable fact that Li family's vitality had been severely injured, and its status in Yangon City had plummeted. Therefore, the guards of Li family were somewhat dispirited. At this moment, a man's voice suddenly sounded in the ears of the guards. "Where is Li Jianyu? Let him get out and pay the money." The guards were all startled. When they looked up, they saw two young and tall men standing in front of the gate. The guard of Li family was in a bad mood. Now seeing these two came to cause trouble to the Li family, they shouted furiously. "Who are you to cause trouble here? Can our young master's name be simply mentioned by you? Get lost, otherwise don't blame us for being rude." Before he finished speaking, his vision blurred, and he heard a bang. The whole person was thrown out like a cannonball, and hit the door panel hard. In the pain of broken bones, the heavy door of the Li mansion was creaking under the huge impact. Then he collapsed to the ground. In mid-air, Little Dumb Cow, which had drummed into a big ball, returned to his original shape and fell to the ground with a bang. Little Egg immediately leaned forward, touching his ugly little head and complimenting him. "Little Cow, good job. When we return, I will let Mom cook for you." Little Dumb Cow was praised and caressed by Little Egg, and his whole body was shaking with excitement. He was making a silly laugh. But Little Egg had already returned to Little Golden Dragon and the others. The few little guys lined up and shouted loudly, "Pay the debt, Li Jianyu. Get out and pay off the money you owe." At this moment, everyone in the Li family was shocked. The first one who came out was an old man who looked like he was in his early 50s. Seeing Bai Hu and the others walking in, his eyes widened as he shouted angrily, "Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in our Li family?" Bai Hu crossed his arms and sneered, "Where is Li Jianyu? Let the turtle grandson meet his grandpa." The old man said angrily, "You should report your name first and make it clear why are you looking for Jianyu. If you dare to walk in bluntly, don't blame me for being rude." Bai Hu said leisurely, "I'm Bai Hu, the guard of Xi Yue. I'm here to collect the debt from Li Jianyu for my young master." Because of the sound just now, a lot of people have gathered outside Li family's door at this time, and they were poking their heads at the door to watch the excitement. Bai Hu was very satisfied with the current situation. He took out the debt note and showed it to the old man. "May I know who you are of the Li family? But no matter what your cultivation is, you should understand words, right? This is the debt note written by Li Jianyu himself to Chang'e Gambling House. Now he has lost the bet, but Chang'e Gambling House gave us this piece of waste paper to our young master to repay the debt. If you are our young master, would you accept it?" The old man was startled first, then he glanced at the debt note intently. With just a glance, he took a deep breath. The number of crystal stones written on it almost made him faint. Chapter 10:17. Might as well rob. While showing it, he smiled and said, "Can you all see clearly? This is written by Li Jianyu himself. The handwriting is his, and there is Li family's seal on it. Everyone here please see it clearly, lest Li family refuse to admit it later, and say that our young master is blackmailing them." Most of the people who could live in the vicinity of the Li family were big families in Yangon City. They were not afraid of the Li family, and were even willing to watch the Li family make a fool of themselves. So when Bai Hu asked, they immediately laughed and echoed loudly. The old man of the Li family looked pale, and he couldn't speak for a long while. At this moment, a majestic voice came from behind. "Cheng'an, what happened?" The old man turned his head and saw the visitor, and he immediately said in surprise, "Patriarch, they are here to make trouble. They claimed that Jianyu owes them crystal stones, and we must pay them back." What came out was a middle-aged man who looked younger than the old man, but he seemed to have an extraordinary vibe. His cultivation was obviously extremely high. Many people immediately recognized the identity of this person. He was Li Zongming, the patriarch of the Li family and the father of Li Jianyu. As Li Zongming heard this, he glanced at Bai Hu and Gu Lufeng with a cold gaze and said coldly, "You two break into my Li family and cause trouble. What are your intentions?" Bai Hu dug his ear and said impatiently, "Do you people of the Li family understand human language? Didn't I just say clearly enough? Li Jianyu owed our young master crystal stones, So we are here to collect debts. The old man Li Chengan, who came out earlier, approached Li Zongming and whispered the amount on the debt note and the ins and outs of the matter in his ear. Li Zongming's eyes widened slightly, and his face turned gloomy. He gritted his teeth after a long while. How do you prove that this debt note was written by Zhenyu? It is clear that you are working with the Chang'e gambling house to blackmail our Li family. This is simply ridiculous. If you get lost now, I can still let you go? Ha 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 ha. Before Li Zongming could finish his words, Bai Hu had already laughed and interrupted him. He turned to the people at the gate. See? I told you earlier that Li family will refuse to admit it. He even said that the Chang'e gambling house forged this debt note. Chang'e gambling house was able to forge Li Zhenyu's handwriting, and they also forged the seal of your Li family? Immediately he put away his smile and coldly. Whether this debt note is real, can't we make it clear after Patriarch Li let Li Zhenyu confront us? Li Zongming was infuriated hearing the ridicule of the crowd. He said bluntly, Zhenyu fell from the city wall that day because of you guys. Now he is recuperating in the Yunlan sect. If you want to find him, wait a few months. Bai Hu was amused by the shamelessness of the Li family. He didn't smile, but he released a faint murderous intent. Then does Elder Li mean that you don't want to pay the debt? Li Zongming sneered. Showing an inexplicable debt note, and you want us Li family to pay such a large number of crystal stones? In your dream, you might as well rob us. Bai Hu sneered and said slowly, Elder Li is really smart. How do you know that we are going to rob? Chapter 10:18. Whoever got hit knew the pain, but everyone present, including the spiritual pets, wasn't bothered by this. Bai Hu even squinted and smiled. It seems that Li family is really poor. They can't even pay the crystal stones they owe. Little Egg, what if they don't have the money? Wouldn't we lose a lot? Little Egg immediately clutched his little paw and said without hesitation, Isn't that easy? If they don't have money, just pay the debt with items. Comrades, let's go. Let's take all the treasure in this house. All of them. With that said, without waiting for everyone's reaction, his little pink body had already rushed forward like a cannonball. Bai Hu wanted to ask what comrades meant, but Little Egg had already run far away. Because Little Egg rushed out, Little Golden Dragon, Purple Abyss Vine, and Mo Xiaotu rushed out immediately without hesitation. Only the best-behaved Xiao Li and the unresponsive Little Dumb Cow remained in place. Li Zongming's face was distorted by their arrogant faces, but he didn't feel much fear for them in his heart. Although the two in front of him were both at the gold core stage, the Li family had 5 gold core stage cultivators. Even if Li Zhenyu was currently recovering from injuries, there were still 4 at the gold core stage later stage. As for the remaining few spiritual pets and women who didn't seem threatening, they wouldn't take them seriously. They want to cause trouble in my Li family with just these few guys? They are simply ignorant. Li Zongming jumped up. A long sword appeared in his hand as he rushed toward Gu Lufeng. He had already seen that Gu Lufeng had the highest cultivation among them, almost comparable to him. As long as he killed Gu Lufeng first, the remaining people were simply not his opponent at all. Gu Lufeng stood on the spot leisurely. He smirked slightly. The peach blossom eyes under the mask were gleaming, as if they were shining with a different kind of light. Just when Li Zongming's sword was about to pierce Gu Liufeng's heart, suddenly there was a bang from the tip of the sword. The flying sword seemed to have hit an iron stone, and it bent and broke abruptly. Before Li Zongming realized what had happened, a huge shadow already appeared in front of him. Little Dumb Cow's body had grown for 100 times, then he used the most primitive attack, headbutt, on Li Zongming's head. Bang! With a loud noise, Li Zongming only felt dizzy. The spiritual power shield that he cast shook for a while. Under the intense pain in his internal organs, he spouted a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. But how could Little Dumb Cow let him go so easily? The huge body bounced on the ground like a ball. It rushed into the air. Then it landed quickly, pressing on Li Zongming again. Li Zongming seemed to hear the sound of his bones breaking, and he spouted a mouthful of blood. Finally, he couldn't take it and fainted. At this moment, everyone in the Li family was in a mess. They didn't pay attention to Mo Xiaotu and the spiritual pets at all, They just wanted to focus on dealing with Gu Lufeng and Bai Hu. But when they really fought, they found out that they were wrong. Throughout the battle, Bai Hu and Gu Lufeng both stood leisurely and watched the show. It was the group of little guys who actually fought. Little Dumb Cow knocked out Li Zongming, who was at the gold core stage later stage. Mo Xiaotu's fist. Whoever got hit knew the pain. Chapter 10:19. Turned upside down. The most ruthless was actually Xiao Li, who had the cutest look. This was Xiao Li's first real battle after coming out of the secret realm. She tried to prove that she had other strengths in addition to using illusion. When those guards of the Meridian stage and Foundation establishment stage just got close to her, they were blown back instantly and fainted right away. In just a short time, the entire Li family was actually turned upside down. Even the remaining 2 gold core stage elders were defeated by Little Golden Dragon and Little Purple. They tied them together and threw them on the ground. Little Egg and the other little ones rushed into the Li family happily, searching every inch of the Li family's corners and keeping all the valuables into the storage ring. Little Purple searched everyone in Li family and confiscated all of their storage rings. Li Zongming had already woken up at this time. Seeing such a mess in his eyes, all the Li family's disciples had been stripped, he really wanted to faint again. "Father, what happened?" Li Zhenyu's voice came from outside the door. Seeing such a mess in the Li family, he couldn't help exclaiming. Bai Hu, who was counting the treasures that Little Purple looted, heard Li Zhenyu's voice and raised his head. He said with a half-smile, "Oh, Elder Li? I thought you had run to the Yunlan sect to avoid the debt." Li Zhenyu saw Bai Hu and Gu Lufeng and quickly recognized their identities. Thinking of the humiliation and embarrassment Shi Yu had caused him on the city wall, new hatred and old hatred suddenly surged up together. "Bai Hu, Gu Lufeng, why are you doing this? You guys won the medical skill match and earned the fame and fortune. But now you even come to trouble my Li family? Don't you think this is too much?" "Too much?" Bai Hu sneered as he took out the debt note and shook it. "We are just here to collect what we deserve. How is it too much?" Li Zhenyu's face changed drastically when he saw the debt note in Bai Hu's hand. At first, he knew that Nangongyu had bet a lot of crystal stones on Shi Yu. He thought they were trying to help Shi Yu gain momentum, and he was full of disdain for their behavior. In addition, Lu Zhishi intentionally talked about this in front of him with a sad face. Li Zhenyu wanted to please Zhishi, so he wrote a debt note to increase Lu Zhishi's win rate again. In addition to helping Lu Zhishi build momentum and allowing rumors about Shi Yu to spread better, it was also because Li Zhenyu believed that Lu Zhishi would definitely win. He was badly injured on the city wall and lost all his face, so he had forgotten the existence of this debt note. Now seeing the debt note in Bai Hu's hand, he immediately looked shocked. The number of crystal stones was simply a sky-high price. If he really wanted to pay it back, he probably needed to dismantle the entire Li family and exchange it for money. However, if Li family was dismantled and lost all funds, what was left of Li Zhenyu? Thinking of this, Li Zhenyu immediately gritted his teeth and said, "I don't know anything about this debt note." "You don't know?" Bai Hu sneered. "Hee, it doesn't matter to us whether young Master Li knows it or not. We just want to confirm that the seal belongs to the Li family. Since young Master Li wants to renege, we will just take all the things in the Li family to pay the debt." Chapter 10:20. What's left? You dare. Li Zhenyu's face turned pale in horror. Then he looked at the mess in his home and his father's dying look. His body trembled suddenly. At this moment, Little Egg and Mo Xiaotu had searched everything and ran out happily. Mo Xiaotu said, "Bai Hu, their marble is made of green jade. I heard from my grandfather that green jade can be used to make inscribed jade slip, which is of good value. So I dug out their floors and took them away." Bai Hu immediately smiled and praised. "Little Rabbit is really smart. Well done. When we return, I will let young master cook you a good meal." Mo Xiaotu immediately smiled delightedly. Little Egg held his face with his paw and smiled. "They have planted a lot of precious spiritual grass in their backyard. I have pulled out all the spiritual grass. I believe Mom will like it." Xiaoli also got together with Little Egg and said in a gentle voice, "I also helped Auntie Little Purple to collect storage rings. I haven't missed any of them. Auntie Little Purple, right? The purple vine shook immediately, and she affectionately touched Xiao Li's little face. Li Zhenyu, who listened to their conversation, felt dizzy and barely fainted on the ground. Storage rings, spiritual grass, and even the green jade bricks, these people have taken them all. What is left in the Li family? What is left for me, Li Zhenyu? Asshole, I will fight to the death with you. Li Zhenyu screamed. He even forgot to take out his spiritual weapon, and he rushed toward Baihu frantically. Baihu didn't even move, but the purple vine rose up into the sky and whipped at Li Zhenyu's chest. Li Zhenyu's ribs that healed just now made a crackling sound, and he flew out directly and collapsed to the ground. Baihu laughed and waved his hand. Since we have collected the debt, let's go back. The little ones responded in unison, each with their heads up and their chests tall. They seemed indescribable domineering. Gu Lufeng slowly followed behind a few people and shook his head with a smile, but after walking a few steps, he suddenly turned around and looked at Li Zongming. Li Zongming was sinisterly looking at Little Golden Dragon, Little Dumb Cow and the others. Gu Liufeng's eyes dimmed. He frowned slightly, then he revealed a hint of sneer before catching up with Baihu and the others. In Tiangang Kingdom's Yangon City, the medical skills match between Hushi and Fairy Jishi was known to everyone. But in the remote Jinling Kingdom's Yanjing City, many people didn't know anything about this. At this time, Feng Yunjing was also entering Yanjing City. It was just that compared to when they came, they all disguised themselves. On the streets of Yanjing City, 3 soldiers lined up patrolling from time to time. These soldiers were wearing black armor with distinctive signs. Feng Yunjing recognized them as the Iron Kirin soldiers of King of Hell at a glance, and they were called Iron Kirin, the first elite army of the Miluo continent. A middle-aged man next to Feng Yunjing gently stroked his long beard and said in a deep voice, "It seems that the news is right. The King of Hell Mansion has now completely controlled the entire Yanjing City. Even the Imperial Guard who is in charge of protecting Yanjing City has also been replaced by Iron Kirin." Chapter 1021. I'm Zhu Que. Feng Yunjing looked ugly when he heard that. He gritted his teeth and said with hatred, "Humph. What King of Hell? He is just a kid in his early 20s. If it weren't for my father and elders stopping me from going against the King of Hell Mansion, can Nangong you control Yanjing City?" The middle-aged man saw his volume increased, and his spiritual power with murderous intent had attracted the attention of Iron Kirin soldiers not far away. He quickly stretched out his hand to hold Feng Yunjing, and he whispered, "Young master, please calm down. After all, Nangong Yu is just a powerless high-rank martial artist. With his ability, he can only dominate a small country. To our Feng family, he is nothing at all." The words of the middle-aged man made Feng Yunjing's complexion look a lot better, and his spiritual power calmed down. Upon seeing this, the middle-aged man hurriedly continued, "But young master should know that your biggest enemy right now is not Nangong Yu, but the young master who can return to the Feng family anytime." Feng Yunjing's eyes were cold, and he said 3 words coldly, "Feng Yunjiao. Don't even dream of coming back. I will never give him this opportunity." The middle-aged man saw his look, and he quickly convinced, "So young master, we must not make mistakes in our mission this time. We must control Shengda Hall and Shiyu and the Hans of our Feng family. As for this mere Yanjing City, young master, let me tell you the truth, compared to Shengda Hall and the best quality pills behind it, even the entire Jinling Kingdom is nothing. Why should the young master compete with the King of Hell for a small town?" Feng Yunjing's gaze swept over the Iron Kirin soldiers, and he snorted, "I know, no need to say more. Let's go to Shengda Hall now." The two went all the way toward Shengda Hall. At this time, both of them were wearing inconspicuous costumes, and Feng Yunjing's hair had drooped down from the front, covering his remarkable face. It seemed to outsiders that these were just 2 of the most common foreign tourists who wants to go to Shengda Hall to buy medicinal pills. After turning around a corner, Feng Yunjing saw Shengda Hall right in front of him. Suddenly, a figure suddenly pounced on him. How powerful was Feng Yunjing? Even without using spiritual power, he could quickly dodge the attack. He was in a bad mood. Now someone came to trouble him. His eyes suddenly became hostile. and the sword chi in his hand quietly condensed. Just when his sword chi was about to be released, a woman's hoarse voice suddenly sounded. Young Master Feng, it is me. I'm Zhu Que. I'm Zhu Que, next to King of Hell. Feng Yunjing was stunned for a moment when he saw a woman in ragged clothes and disheveled hair not far away. Seeing Feng Yunjing's action, the woman immediately rushed over, hugged his leg and whispered, Young Master Feng, save me, please save me and my master. Feng Yunjing frowned. He of course knew who Zhu Que was. She was one of the 4 trusted subordinates of Nangongyu. But his status was honorable. How could he remember the look of Nangongyu's subordinate? However, the middle-aged man next to Feng Yunjing was surprised when he heard the woman's words. He bowed his head and lifted the woman's face, waving her hair to take a look. With just this wave, the middle-aged man almost vomited. He quickly threw his hand away with disgust. It turned out that the woman's face was covered with large black spots. Her skin was wrinkled and dry like tree bark, like an old woman. There was also a scary scar on her face that was slightly wriggling like a centipede. Chapter 1022. This, what the hell is this? The middle-aged man yelled in horror. He had seen Zhu Que's appearance. Although she couldn't be said to be glamorous, she was also a beautiful woman. How could she be like this nowadays? She was uglier than the beggar on the street. The woman covered her face hurriedly, screamed in horror and murmured, It's not me, it's not me. It's the bitch Nalanhashi who framed me. It's she who harmed me. Nalanhashi? This name made both Feng Yunjing and the middle-aged man puzzled. At this time, the woman had once again rushed toward Feng Yunjing, saying in tears, Young Master Feng, you must believe me, I really am Zhu Que, and my master is Elder Chung from the Doctors Association. I will become like this because I was framed by that slut. And my master is also controlled by that slut. Young Master Feng, please trust me. As soon as the woman rushed over, Feng Yunjing smelled an unpleasant odor. His eyes were full of disgust, and he kicked away the woman. Unexpectedly, the hair of the woman fell off during the pulling. A black and uneven scalp and the woman's old and ugly face were also revealed to them. People passing by accidentally saw it, and they couldn't help but let out an exclamation. Ghost! Feng Yunjing also felt his stomach tumbling, almost vomiting on the spot. The movement here finally alarmed Iron Kirin soldiers that were patrolling around. One of the Iron Kirin teams was about to come here to check the situation. The middle-aged man frowned and quickly said, Young Master, this woman knows Elder Chung, maybe she really is Zhu Quebec. We might as well take her away first so we can ask questions. Feng Yunjing pondered for a moment and nodded. Then he stretched out his hand and waved lightly. A transparent shield covered all 3 of them. In the blink of an eye, the 3 people disappeared in place. In a remote mansion in Yanjing City, Feng Yunjing and the middle-aged man slowly appeared. There was also the ugly ghost-like woman. As soon as the woman was thrown to the ground by Feng Yunjing, she immediately knelt on the ground, begging and crying. Thank you, young Master Feng, for saving my life. Young Master Feng, please save my master too. Your master? Feng Yunjing narrowed his eyes and said coldly. You mean Nangongyu? Yes. Yes. King of Hell Nangongyu is my master. What do you mean by asking me to save him? What happened to Nangongyu? The ugly woman raised her head abruptly. She said with her eyes sparkling, Master. Master is controlled by the slut. Yes, it must be so. It's all because of that slut that the master's temperament has changed drastically. It's completely different from before. He even abolished my spiritual root and put me into the spirit sealing prison. I somehow managed to escape. The centipede scar on her face trembled as she said. Her eyes were full of resentment and hatred. Abolish spiritual root. The middle-aged man couldn't help but whisper. No wonder you become like this? So you really are Zhu Que? The woman raised her head, looked carefully at the middle-aged man for a long while, and suddenly said in a hoarse voice, Your Hall Master Zheng of the Feng family, I used to take medicine from you. The middle-aged man's eyes flashed, then he nodded at Feng Yunjing. Young master, it seems that she is really Zhu Quebec. It's just Zhu Que you. How did you become the way you are now? Chapter 1023. Is it Xi Yue? I just said it. It's because of that slut. Zhu Que suddenly screamed hysterically. It was that slut who caused me to be locked in the damn place like spirit sealing prison. I was suffering so much, but I couldn't die. I can't wait to peel her skin, detach her muscle tendon, eat her meat. The bitch bewitches my master to treat me like that. She will definitely not end well. Zhu Que had escaped from King of Hell Mansion for 10 days, but remembering the days in spirit sealing prison, she felt like falling into the abyss of hell. Every day in the spirit sealing prison was extremely torturing, especially when she saw the reflection of her face in the water. She wanted to tear Hushi into pieces. But at that time she still had a glimmer of hope. Zhu Que always felt that the master was just being controlled by the slut, and lost his heart. When he woke up, he would know that she was the one who was good for him, and he would definitely let her go out. However, she had been tormented in the spirit sealing prison for so long, but what she finally got was not Nangong Yu's wake-up, but the Zhu Que mark on her body disappeared without a trace. The disappearance of Zhu Que's mark meant that someone had taken her place. It meant that King of Hell Mansion and Nangong Yu completely erased her existence. Zhu Que was completely desperate in the spirit sealing prison, but at the same time, she was hysterically crazy. She was not reconciling to living like an inhuman in the spirit sealing prison. Not reconciling to just dying like this. Even if I'm going to die, I must let the bitch who harmed me get retribution and get what she deserves. With that madness, Zhu Que broke 2 of her meridians and escaped from the spirit sealing prison. She escaped from the spirit sealing prison originally intended to go to the Doctors Association to find her master, but after she left the King of Hell Mansion, she discovered that Iron Kirin had taken control of the entire Yanjing city. The bases and medicine halls of the Feng family and the Doctors Association originally stationed on the street were all cleaned up. If she wants to leave Yanjing City, she must be interrogated by the Iron Kirin. With her current appearance, it would definitely attract attention. She would even be recognized by Xian Wu at a glance. At this time, Zhu Que was even more desperate to find that even if she escaped from the spirit sealing prison, she was still unable to escape. She could only watch her body aging day by day and dying day by day. When she was desperate, she suddenly saw Feng Yunjing on the street. Hall Master Zheng didn't recognize her at a glance, but she had seen Feng Yunjing many times before. Coupled with Feng Yunjing's outstanding appearance, she naturally recognized him at a glance. When Zhu Que saw Feng Yunjing, it was like seeing her only savior, so he rushed toward Feng Yunjing on the street desperately. Hall Master Zheng asked how Zhu Que would become like this, but Zhu Que's mind at this time was already a little confused. She just spoke incoherently and kept shouting, "It's that bitch who set me up. That bitch seduced my master and controlled my master." Hall Master Zheng remembered the rumors in Yanjing City, and he suddenly frowned. "Is the person you mentioned that harmed you Xi Yue?" "Xi Yue? Xi Yue? That's right, it's Xi Yue." "No. Wrong." Zhu Que nodded first, then she shook her head violently. "No, that slut is not called Xi Yue. Xi Yue is just her pseudonym. Her real name is not Xi Yue. She is third miss from Nailan Mansion. She is the daughter of Nailan Jingze, Nailan Hushi." Chapter 1024. Tell us in detail, Nailan Hushi? Feng Yunjing and Hall Master Zheng couldn't help exclaiming. Feng Yunjing knew that Xi Yue was a woman, but he did not expect that Xi Yue's true identity turned out to be a miss of the Nailan family. Moreover, he heard that the Nailan family was exterminated a month ago. Now the entire mansion was empty like a haunted house. Could it be that Xi Yue did all this? Hall Master Zheng was shocked that Xi Yue, who had turned the entire Feng family upside down, and the amazing young man who amazed the world, turned out to be a woman. It's no wonder that Nangong Yu protects her so much, and has such an ambiguous relationship with her. It seems that Nangong Yu has long known Xi Yue's identity as a woman. Hall Master Zheng took a deep breath, suppressed the shock in his heart, and continued to ask Zhu Que, "You said Xi Yue controlled Nangong Yu. How did she do it? How do you prove it?" Zhu Que bit her teeth, making a rattling sound as if thinking of something. The pair of eyes bulged up on her wrinkled face, looking extremely scary. If Master weren't controlled, How could Master treat such a powerless ugly slut differently? If Master were not controlled, how could Master ignore his own illness in order to save her? Wait. Sickness? Hall Master Zhang quickly grabbed a word. Nangongyu got sick? What illness does he have? Zhu Que opened her mouth slightly, trying to say something, but she soon closed his mouth tightly and remained silent. All of the four confidants had a blood pact with Nangongyu. Even if she was no longer Zhu Que and her cultivation was lost, the binding force of the blood pact still exists. As long as she dared to tell the secrets related to Nangongyu, the blood pact would immediately backlash, killing her on the spot. Feng Yunjing was anxious in his heart. He wanted to know Nangongyu's weakness right away. He gathered a sword aura in his hand and said fiercely, "Tell me or not. What illness does Nangongyu have?" Listening to Zhu Ke's tone, Nangongyu's illness should be very serious. This is equivalent to Nangongyu's weakness. If I can grasp this weakness, I might be able to get rid of Nangongyu. By then isn't Xi Yue mine? Zhu Que was full of horror. She covered his mouth, shook her head desperately, and refused to say one more word. Hall Master Zhang seemed to have thought of something. He frowned slightly, stopped Feng Yunjing, and said coldly to Zhu Que, "You tell us all the things that happened before and after Nangongyu met Xi Yue in detail." Seeing that she had escaped, she was overjoyed. In order to win the trust of Feng Yunjing, she didn't dare to conceal anything. She quickly told all the things she knew about Nalan Hushi, Xi Yue and Nangongyu. The bitch Nalan Hushi was a trash at the time. She didn't have any spiritual power, and her medical skills were just at the amateur level. She couldn't even refine pill. However, Master believed her more than me, and he even let this bitch treat him. No cultivation. Can't refine pill. Feng Yunjing and Hall Master Zhang looked at each other again in horror. If she really didn't have spiritual power at all, and didn't know how to refine pill more than half a year ago, then according to her now well-known ability, how outstanding is this person's talent? What has she encountered that let her have such an achievement now? Chapter 1025. Death Penalty Speech Prohibition. Zhu Que shook her head and said, I don't know. I only know that Master was in retreat, and he left suddenly. When he came back, he brought back Xi Yue, who was unconscious. I was a doctor, so I could feel that Xi Yue was already facing death. If it weren't for Master to sacrifice himself to save her, how could this slut survive? How could it arouse the earth-shaking natural phenomenon? Arousing the earth-shaking natural phenomenon? What do you mean by that? Zhu Que recalled the scene of that day, and she gritted her teeth and said viciously, "In Yanjing City, everyone knows that Nalan Hushi is a waste that cannot cultivate, and her Dantian is a waste Dantian. But I don't know what the bitch seduced my master to do. After her injury healed, she was suddenly able to draw spirit into her body, and even when Zhu Que was about to say the strange scene of a giant vortex sucking all the spiritual power, and the evil sun and night, previously translated as demon day and night, her body suddenly twitched. What kind of natural phenomenon is it?" Hall Master Zhang was anxious. He grabbed Zhu Que by the collar and asked anxiously. Zhu Ke's face was full of pain. She kept scratching her neck, desperately trying to speak, but she couldn't say anything except for making a click sound. What's going on? Zhu Que, what happened to you? Zhu Ke's face changed from red to white, then from white to green. She looked like a fish about to die of suffocation. She couldn't do anything except squirming her mouth and protruding her eyes. Feng Yunjing's expression changed slightly and said, "She was cast with a speech prohibition art." The so-called speech prohibition art would only be triggered only when certain forbidden words were mentioned. Once the enchantment was triggered, those who wanted to tell the secret would be punished. There were several types of punishments. Some were minor punishments, which could be restored to normal after the pain. Some were the sole imprisonment of the fundamental essence. Once the prohibited words were spoken, one's soul would be irreversibly damaged. Of course, there was also the death penalty. Feng Yunjing shook his head indifferently. She was given a death penalty speech prohibition. She's gone. Hall Master Zhang released his hand with an annoyed look and threw Zhu Que to the ground. He said with disgust, I thought saving this ugly monster can let us know more secrets about the king of Hell Mansion and Xi Yue. But she can't help anything at all. Zhu Ke's body twitched after hearing the words. Her eyes were full of despair and resentment, but she couldn't say anything in the end. She died with blood coming out from her 7 orifices. Looking at Zhu Ke, who was dead, Feng Yunjing frowned and muttered to herself. Strange natural phenomenon. What phenomenon is it? He knew that a lot of things happened in Yanjing City during this time. The spiritual power vortex that rumored to appear in the evil sun and night. The earlier opening of the sealed dragon domain's secret territory. Do these have anything to do with Xi Yue? Hall Master Zheng frowned and said. In any case, there must be an ulterior secret in Nangong Yu and Xi Yue. And this secret must have something to do with the best quality pill sold by Xingda Hall. Maybe it's also related to the sealed dragon domain's secret territory. Feng Yunjing nodded, and he said coldly. It seems that, as we had expected, the new owner of sealed dragon domain's secret territory is likely to be Nangong Yu or Xi Yue. Chapter 1026. Red clothes like fire. Feng Yunjing clenched his fists abruptly, and a hint of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. Xi Yue turns out to be Nalan Hushi, the well-known useless trash in Yanjing City. However, such a trash turned into a genius overnight, and caused a natural phenomenon. What kind of secret is hidden in her body? I still remember that in breaking Spirit Mountain, Xi Yue had the power to resist even under my hands. Her strength is even comparable to the Hall Master Zheng besides. But in just half a year, how did she progress from a waste person with no cultivation to a powerhouse who can fight with gold core stage? And what benefits did Nangong Yu get from this? If I can get Xi Yue and know the secret of Xi Yue's rapid advancement, can I be stronger than Nangong Yu? Will the elders in the clan also look at me differently? Hall Master Zheng suddenly said in a deep voice. Young master, why don't we go to Nalan Mansion first? Maybe we can find any clues. Feng Yunjing nodded. Then they quickly disposed of Zhu Ke's body and left the mansion in a flash. Young master, the Nalan Mansion is ahead. It is already empty now, and I heard that it is even haunted, so it hasn't been sold yet. Feng Yunjing listened to Hall Master Zheng's narration and nodded. They accelerated their pace, and were about to enter the gate. Suddenly, Feng Yunjing's footsteps halted, and he retreated abruptly. The door of the Nalan Mansion was still empty. No one was there, but Feng Yunjing's face looked shocked and uncertain. His eyes were full of panic. Hall Master Zheng, who had been following Feng Yunjing, saw Feng Yunjing step back, so he gave him a hand. At this time, he could feel the slight tremor of Feng Yunjing's hand, and the fear and amazement that permeated his emotions. Hall Master Zheng looked at the door of Nalan Mansion, but there was nothing unusual at all. He couldn't help asking, Young master, what's the matter? Feng Yunjing opened her mouth, unable to speak for a while. There is, after finally uttering 2 words, his pupils suddenly shrank. The blood in his body seemed to freeze, and he could no longer move anymore. At this time, Hall Master Zheng also found something wrong. He stared straight into the direction of the Nalan Mansion's main entrance, only to see a figure slowly appearing there. The red clothes were like fire, and the hair was like a waterfall. The exquisite eyebrows were like the dazzling sun, which made people want to worship and confess their sins just by looking at them. It was a young man who could take away the breathing of those who saw him. His face was covered by black silk-like hair. The light and shadow disappeared, making him look elusive. However, he knew by just a glance that how peerless and fascinating the man's look was. When Hall Master Zheng met Nangong Yu for the first time before, he also admired that there was such an outstanding man in the world. Only that face could make all women in the world willing to die for him. No wonder the arrogant miss would fall for Nangong Yu faithfully for so many years. Chapter 1027. Surrender and Fear. But the face of the man in red clothes in front was comparable to Nangong Yu. The aura that seemed to radiate unintentionally from him was even more frightening than Nangong Yu. The man in red walked out of Nalan Mansion, and he slowly glanced at Feng Yunjing and Hall Master Zheng. At this moment, Feng Yunjing and Hall Master Zheng were all stunned. and sweats came out fro their foreheads. The man in red clothes smiled slightly, stretched out his finger, and gently drew one on his lips. That smile was really more dazzling than 100 flowers blooming, but in the eyes of Feng Yunjing and Hall Master Zheng, they seemed to see the evil from hell, making their knees tremble. Finally, they were unable to withstand the pressure and knelt on their knees. Speech Prohibition Art. Speech Prohibition Art. Feng Yunjing's eyes were full of panic, and all the humiliation, inferiority, and unwillingness in his mind all vanished, leaving only the surrender and fear in his mind. Just a few hours ago, they coldly watched Zhu Que died of the speech prohibition art. Now they had been cast with the same speech prohibition art. Their life and death were completely controlled by others, but they couldn't raise any thoughts of resistance in his heart. The man in red did not look at them again after drawing one. He flicked his sleeve to draw a red arc in the air. Immediately afterward, Feng Yunjing felt a dazzling white light flashing in front of him, and he closed his eyes subconsciously. When he opened it again, he was horrified to find that the entire Nalan mansion in front of him disappeared. That's right, it wasn't that it collapsed into ruins or it was blown into fly ash, but it disappeared completely. The figure of the man in red clothes had already risen into the sky and lightly jumped onto a snow-white airship. The airship was a little bigger than the flying sword, and it was all crystal clear, exuding a bitter chill. Feng Yunjing could still feel the bone-piercing chill standing far away from the spacecraft. It was even colder than the thousands of years-old ice. The man in red was standing on the white jade airship. His slender figure seemed to exude radiance, but he seemed to be affected by the piercing cold at all. Feng Yunjing opened his mouth with his body trembling, trying to say something. But in the blink of an eye, the white jade airship disappeared into the sky. The coldness and pressure all over his body suddenly disappeared. Feng Yunjing let out a sigh of relief. The sweat on his face was dripping down like rain. Hall Master Zheng even sat down on the ground and said tremblingly, "Young master, that man in red clothes is... who is he? How could he have such a terrifying cultivation? He actually raised the entire Nalan mansion. How high his cultivation is." Before Hall Master Zheng finished speaking, his eyes suddenly widened, and the two eyeballs almost came out. He stretched out his hand in horror and choked his throat, making a click sound. His expression was extremely painful. It was full of despair and fear. However, his struggle lasted only a few seconds, and there was a loud bang in his throat. His entire head flew out and rolled on the ground a few times. Feng Yunjing was also stunned by the scene in front of him. He stared blankly at Hall Master Zheng's bloody head as well as those eyes that seemed to roll out, and he couldn't help shivering. Chapter 1028. The Real Intention, Speech Prohibition Art. What is forbidden is all the words about the man in red clothes. Even if it is not to other people, the communication between us will be punished by death. Who is this man in red clothes? Why did he come to Nalan Mansion? Feng Yunjing panted in horror for a long time in the same place. Then he wiped the cold sweat from his head anxiously before hurriedly leaving the street where Nalan Mansion was located. Before finding Xi Yue and returning to Shengda Hall, I must first tell the elders about the identity of Xi Yue and Nalan Hushi, as well as Nangong illness, as well as the speech prohibition art cast upon me. I must think of a solution. As for Xi Yue no Nalan Hushi, she will never escape from my hands. Never. The news that Nalan Mansion disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye quickly spread throughout the Miluo continent. A mere Nalan Mansion certainly couldn't attract everyone's attention. But the key was that the way Nalan Mansion disappeared was really weird. The Nalan Mansion seemed to have evaporated from the world. Not even a broken tile was left behind. Everything happened silently in the blink of an eye. Of course, the news quickly reached the Tiangang kingdom. When Hushi got the news, the surprise and doubt in his mind were more than anyone else. Gu Lufeng knew Hushi's identity, so this matter naturally made people inquire in more detail. He frowned and said, "I asked Mei Ruyan to inquire about the news from many sources. No one in Yanjing City knew what happened to Nalan Mansion at that time. However, some people said that just before Nalan Mansion disappeared, they saw a white jade airship in the sky." Hushi stared at Nangongyu. Nangongyu retracted divine sense in the inscribed jade slip and nodded. Will you also sent news? Iron Kirin in Yanjing City also doesn't know what happened. There are also people who saw the white jade airship and a man in red clothes on it. However, he disappeared in a flash, so no one can confirm whether it was just an illusion. Man in red clothes? Hushi thought for a moment, but she couldn't think of anyone with such characteristics. She looked at Nangongyu, and Nangongyu also shook his head. I can't guess who it is. It's just... Nangongyu paused slightly with a dark glow in his eyes. It is not difficult to razor Nailin Mansion to the ground, but it is difficult to make Nailin Mansion disappear in the blink of an eye without attracting anyone's attention. As far as I know, in the entire Miluo continent, no one can do this absolutely. Who will this man in red clothes be? Gu Lufeng frowned and said, Nailin Mansion is just a family that emerged more than 10 years ago, and has no strong background. What's more, Nailin Mansion has long been exterminated. What is the purpose of this person appearing in Nailin Mansion? Baihu also knocked on the table and said with a puzzled face, that is to say, although Nailin Mansion is considered to be one of the 4 major families in the Jinling Kingdom, it is really nothing in the vast Miluo continent. Why would such a powerhouse bother with a mere Nailin Mansion? And it is even a dead Nailin Mansion. It's really weird. When Baihu spoke halfway, his voice suddenly paused. He looked at Hushi with some caution, and he coughed. Could it be that this person is not interested in the Nailin Mansion? But princess... Before Baihu spoke, Nangongyu's fierce eyes swept over. He immediately shivered, made a silent gesture, and shut up. Chapter 1029. A series of questions. Nangongyu saw Hushi's frown and the hidden worries in her gaze. He couldn't help but step forward, hugged her and said, Sheer, don't think too much. No matter what that person wants to do, I won't let him hurt you. Hushi raised his head and glanced at Xiaoqi, who was aside. Then she looked back at Nangongyu and said in a low voice, Nangongyu, do you think that person's purpose is my mother? Even though she didn't even see the face of the man in red clothes, Hushi always had a trace of inexplicable anxiety in her heart. After she heard her master talk about Enlingyue, she was always worried that one day, those people who were looking for Enlingyue would look for her, and Xiaoqi again. So now when she heard the news of the man in red clothes, she felt that this man came for Enlingyue. Nangongyu's eyebrows jumped slightly, and his hands holding Hushi tightened again. He suddenly raised his head and made a gesture. Baihu and Qinglong immediately went out. Gu Lufeng also sensibly pulled Xiaoqi out. Nangongyu lowered his head and said, Sheer, are you sure that your mother Enlingyue is dead? Hushi was stunned. Then she tried to find the memory of the original owner. She frowned. I don't know. Many things are too far away. I can't remember them clearly. But in my memory, my mother disappeared suddenly. I haven't seen her body, nor have I seen her buried. Nangongyu's eyes narrowed slightly with a thoughtful look. Disappearance doesn't necessarily mean dead. As long as you don't see the corpse, she may still be alive. But, even Mamichan kept saying that my mother was dead. Hushi was startled. Then she shook her head again. And if mother hadn't died, how could Nailin Jingzi believe it? I've been in contact with Nailin Jingzi. He didn't doubt my mother's death at all. What's more, if my mother hadn't died, where would she be now? Why didn't she show up until now? Hushi's series of questions silenced the entire room. Nangongyu sighed and said, Forget it, no matter if Enlingyue is still alive or not. Sheer, you should never mention her in front of anyone. As your master said, if Enlingyue really comes from the upper realm, then those who searched for her more than a decade ago were definitely not what we can fight against now. Hushi nodded, reached out, hugged Nangongyu back and let out a sigh of relief. You too, you must protect yourself. Nangongyu smiled softly and dropped a kiss on her head, but in the blink of an eye, the smile on his face was replaced by contemplation. Is the man in red clothes from the upper realm? Who is he? What is his purpose? Next, Hushi stayed in Yangon City for a few days with a responsible attitude toward the patient to ensure that Zhuge Xiaoyan's illness would not recur. After Xiaoqi completely absorbed the second piece of divine soul jade, his spirit became better, and he could say more and more words, which made Hushi very happy. When Hushi got up early this morning, Hushi did not see Little Egg and other little guys. At this moment, I'm Zhu Que came in with her mouth pouting. She said angrily, "Sister Xi Yue, Little Egg, they are too bad. They didn't call me when they went to buy gifts. They said we will go out together in the morning. Humph. I will ignore them when they are back." Hushi saw her face with messy hair and sleepy eyes, and she couldn't help but sneer. "Did you oversleep, so they didn't wake you up and went out by themselves?" Chapter 10:30. Something happened. Mo Xiaotu's body became stiff. She peeked at Xiaoqi, who was obediently learning to use chopsticks, and her cheeks blushed. She immediately ran away with her face covered. Oops, she was angry just now, but she forgot that she hadn't washed her face yet. Such ugly and silly look was actually seen by Xiaoqi's brother. She didn't want to live. Hushi was amused by this girl's cute look. Then Gu Lufeng came in at this time. She couldn't help asking, "Did Little Egg and the others went to buy gifts?" Gu Lufeng nodded and smiled. "And they said they want to bring some souvenirs for Xijia and the children of the Virtue Home." Little Egg suggested. Then Little Golden Dragon, Little Cow and Xiaoli all went with them. Hushi breathed a sigh of relief, but she was still a little worried. She spreading one hand, and purple vines emerged from her palm and shook slightly, conveying a hint of intimacy. At this moment, Bai Hu also walked in from outside the door and just heard their conversation. Seeing Hushi's nervous look, he couldn't help but smiled. "Princess, you are still worried about those little guys. They are all ferocious. In Little Egg's words, it's max combat power. You should worry about those who provoke them instead of these little ones." Hushi had also learned from Purple Abyss Vine at this time that a branch vine of Little Purple was following Little Egg. With the protection of Little Purple, they shouldn't have any problems. She was really relieved. Gu Lufeng smiled gently. "I have already told Little Egg and the others that we will leave at noon, so they will definitely be back at noon." However, after noon, Little Egg and the others did not come back. Hushi's face became dignified, but she was still hoping that the few little guys just forgot the time for fun. However, Purple Abyss Vine, which suddenly shook in her hand, broke her illusion. The clone of Purple Abyss Vine had about 60% to 70% of the attack and defense power of Purple Abyss Vine, but because it had almost no intelligence, the information that could be conveyed to the original body was very limited. From the news sent back from the Purple Abyss Vine clone, Hushi could only know that something really happened to Little Egg and the others. It was the first time that Nangongyu saw Hushi's panic, and her face even turned pale. He hugged Hushi with distress and said softly, "Sheer, don't worry. These spirit beasts have signed a contract with you. Although there may be many ways to block the contract with the owner and the spiritual pet in Miluo continent, at least you can confirm through the contract whether they are still safe." Hushi's eyes widened suddenly. She quickly closed her eyes to feel the contracts in her body. Soon, there were several rays of light on her left hand, and there were magnificent totems looming on it. But to Nangongyu's surprise, in addition to the totem on her left hand, a faint fluorescent light was also lit up on Hushi's heart. The light was still colorful, and it was flickering as if it was breathing. Moreover, because of the emergence of this light, Nangongyu actually had a strange feeling that his body and soul were gently comforted by a powerful and soft vitality. His cultivation that didn't progress for a long time actually had a slight change at this moment. But soon, Hushi opened her eyes with a relieved expression. She said in a low voice, "Fortunately, they are still alive, and they don't seem to have suffered any injuries." As Hushi opened her eyes, the strange power disappeared instantly as if it had never existed. Chapter 10:32. Tired of living at this time, Yunlan's sect was in a mess as if being blown by a tornado. The square was full of injured people who were being helped to walk in. Some were still lying on the ground, weeping and moaning. Some people couldn't help but look at the distant sky with lingering fears on their faces and said, "I didn't expect the few small spiritual pets that seem to be completely non-threatening are actually so powerful." Alas, this time, Yunlan's sect really suffered a heavy loss. Yeah. The other person clutched his painful chest and coughed a few times. Fortunately, those benefactors came in time, Otherwise our entire Yunlan sect would have to be overturned by those little beasts. I didn't expect it that even the elder of Yunlan sect is not the opponent of those little beasts. However, this is also considered a blessing in disguise, cough cough. A man wearing Yunlan sect's elite costumes, although his face was ugly, he still showed a sly smile. We have fought with those spiritual pets, so you should know how special and powerful those spiritual pets are. Now that we hand over these pets, the benefits we can get in the future will be endless. Hehe, senior fellow apprentice Feng is right. Thanks to Elder Li for connecting us to the benefactors. If our Yunlan sect's people can be sent there in the future, our future is limitless. It's a pity that we just let go of those little bastards just like that. They even injured so many of us. I really want to peel their skin and cut off their tendons to dispel my hatred. Junior fellow apprentice Zhao, do you think those little beasts will have a good life? Haha, as they were talking and laughing, the door that had just been closed suddenly emitted a loud noise. Immediately afterward, the heavy metal door made a creaking sound as if overwhelmed. Then the heavy lock fell and the door was pushed open. Yunlan sect's disciples were surprised at first, but when they saw that it was just a few young men, they were all furious. One of the middle-aged men in charge of the general affairs walked up with an impatient look. Leave, Yunlan sect is not accepting guests today. Didn't you see that we are all busy? Come back another day. However, before the middle-aged man finished speaking, a purple shadow whizzed past. He only felt that his neck was tight, and he was picked up by something around his neck. A clear moving but frosty voice sounded in his ears. Where are the spiritual pets you caught? What spiritual pets? Don't talk nonsense. The middle-aged steward rolled his eyes and shouted sharply. You, how dare you? Do you know what this place is? You dare to cause trouble in our Yunlan sect? Are you tired of living? Hushi laughed lowly. Yes, it is indeed tired of living. The middle-aged steward showed a smug smile, thinking she was scared, but his eyes widened in horror the next moment. There was a frightening clicking sound from his neck, accompanied by bone-breaking pain, and the sound of blood gurgling out. The middle-aged manager widened his mouth, making a clicking sound. Then after a snap sound, his entire neck was broken. His head rolled down from his neck. Chapter 1034. Who is it? Our Yunlan sect almost lost to a few spiritual pets. Fan Guangshuan sighed. Then he looked at Li Zhenyu who was sitting below. This time, thanks to Elder Li's decisive decision, we contacted Elder Chung when we caught those little beasts. Otherwise, we would not only make such a big contribution, but we might suffer a big loss instead. Li Zhenyu, who was sitting in the first place, still looked pale at this time. His chest was wrapped with thick gauze and was fixed with a splint. Even when he spoke or acted, there were pains coming from his chest. Therefore, when Li Zhenyu heard Fan Guangshuan's words, he first smiled, then his facial expression was distorted. The fire of anger and hatred in his eyes could not be covered up. Shiyu, they dare to ruin my Li family. I also want to let them have the taste of losing their precious things. Those little beasts are all amazing and extraordinary, and their breeds are so peculiar. Now that they are lost, I believe that bitch Shiyu will definitely feel distressed for a while. Cough cough cough. What's more, such spiritual pets are really rare. The elders of the Doctors Association will be very satisfied. Elder Chung has promised that he will never forget the credit of our Yunlan sect. When Elder Chung returns, we will get a lot of benefits. Fan Guangshuan laughed heartily, his eyes filled with ambitious light. The other elders of the Yunlan sect also stood up to congratulate each other, and their faces were full of smiles with Yurongyuan. In this Miluo continent, who didn't know that building a bridge with the Doctors Association will get a lot of benefits? Especially this Elder Chung. I heard that he has a big position in the Miracle Healer College. If some of our Yunlan sect's disciples can be recruited, then our Yunlan sect will grow even big in the future. Qingxia sect is now getting more arrogant, relying on the supply of medicinal pills from the Shengda Hall. They now completely look down on our Yunlan sect, the second largest sect of Tiangang Kingdom. They even dare to blacklist our entire Yunlan sect, and stopped us from buying the best quality pills. This is really absurd. Haha, we have now built a connection with the Doctors Association. Soon, Qingxia sect will become our stepping stone, and we will be the #1 sect of Tiangang Kingdom. Li Zhenyu listened to the discussion with his eyes shining, as if he had seen his glorious future. However, just as they were thinking about the glorious future, they suddenly heard a loud bang from the door. Immediately afterward, a dark shadow flew in like a cannonball from the door, and it slammed into the position of one of the laughing elders. He heard a loud bang. Immediately afterward, the elder let out a heart-piercing shout. The mahogany chair sitting under him shattered and collapsed to the ground. Sawdust mixed with dust was scattering in the hall. When the dust dissipated, everyone was shocked looking at the elder who had been hit. 2 corpses laid horizontally on the ground. One had broken bones all over his body. His face was mutilated. The other one was the elder. He had already been dead. That's the elder of the gold core stage. How could he be killed just like this? Fan Guangshuan abruptly stood up from his position and shouted at the door. Who is it? Chapter 1035. Act wildly. As soon as he spoke, a pretty young man walked in slowly from the door. The young man had long eyebrows and phoenix eyes, snow-white skin, and facial features that were comparable to the snow lotus on the towering mountain. His appearance was obviously alluring and gorgeous, but one could forget about his look by looking at the frosty expression and the icy light in his eyes, arousing a sense of scrupulous and fear in one's mind. Li Zhenyu stood up abruptly when he saw the visitor. He gritted his teeth and said, Shi Yu, you dare to come to Yunlan sect? The visitor was naturally Hushi, as well as Nangong Yu, Qing Long, Bai Hu Qingwan and Gu Lufeng behind her. As for Mo Xiaotu and Shun Qingchua, she let them stay in the city. Hushi glanced at Li Zhenyu with a cold gaze. Li Zhenyu, I used to treat you as a clown, so I just taught you a lesson without taking your life. But it seems you're tired of living. Li Zhenyu clutched his painful chest, stared at Hushi fiercely, and suddenly laughed. Shi Yu, you came to my Yunlan sect, and you still dare to speak arrogantly. You really think with those gold core stage people behind you, you can do whatever you want in my Yunlan sect? Yunlan sect is the largest sect in the Tsangming Kingdom. There are dozens of martial artists in the gold core stage, and there is also a patriarch of the nascent soul stage who is currently retreating in the back mountains. If Shi Yu thinks he can run wild in Yunlan sect after showing off in the Jinling Kingdom and Yangon City, he is really having a whim. Thinking of this, the pain and hatred on Li Zhenyu's face turned into a proud arrogance. He was originally worried about the forces of the Qingxia sect in Yangon City, so he let go of Shi Yu. He didn't expect her to come to Yunlan sect herself. Haha, you really want to dig your own grave? Li Zhenyu suddenly laughed. Cough, cough, cough. Shi Yu, I want you to taste the consequence of being arrogant today. As he said, he turned to Fan Guangshuan and said in a deep voice, Sect Master, this person is Shi Yu, the Shengda Hall's owner and the person who really provides the best quality pill for Qingxia sect. As long as we can control this person in our hands, do we still have to worry that we can't grow faster and stronger than the Qingxia sect? Fan Guangshuan's pupils contracted abruptly, and his breathing became a little short. The other elders on the side also looked over with greedy faces. When Li Zhenyu saw the expressions of Fan Guangshuan and the other elders, he had guessed their thoughts. He was even more confident in his heart and continued. In addition, there is one more thing, Sect Master. This Shi Yu is not just the owner of Shengda Hall. Even the spiritual pets we caught in the morning are all his. He can get such rare best quality pills and tame such special spiritual pets. Even if he can't be of our use, we can just hand him to the Doctors Association. Fan Guangshuan took a deep breath. His voice was slightly low and hoarse, but he and the Qingxia sect have deep connections. If Qingxia sect knows, Li Zhenyu sneered and said, Sect Master, if we handle this matter carefully, who will know Shi Yu came to our Yunlan sect? Qingxia sect won't even know. Fan Guangshuan's eyes flashed, and he let out a burst of laughter. When these people were talking, Hushi and others watched their performance quietly. Chapter 1036. So much nonsense. Gu Lufeng smiled lightly. Probably they are used to being aloof and can't recognize their situation for a while. Fan Guangshuan listened to their careless attitude of looking down at them, and he was filled with anger. He said coldly, "Just a few martial artists of the gold core stage. And you think you are invincible? You dare to act wild in my Yunlan sect? Brothers, let's teach them how to be humble. It's really noisy." Nangongyu, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly spoke slowly. "Since they don't recognize the situation, let them take a good look themselves." As soon as Nangongyu finished his words, he flicked his sleeve. Suddenly, a rumbling sound resounded in the hall, and the roof above it collapsed in a crack. With just a second, it was actually turned into dust. Fan Guangshuan and others standing in the hall were all horrified, looking toward the front of the hall. When they saw the scene in front of them clearly, they all took a quick breath. The original arrogance on their faces turned into deep fear and amazement instantly. There were hundreds of martial artists in black armor, standing on the square outside the Yunlan sect's hall. They lined up neatly one by one, blocking every exit of Yunlan sect tightly. In the square, the Yunlan sect disciples who were in the process of healing the wounds were lying silently on the ground at this time. The entire Yunlan sect, the original lively and noisy Yunlan sect, now looked like a ghost town. There was neither a sound or a person there. A deep fear surged in Fan Guangshuan's heart. He tremblingly pointed at Xi Yue and said with sharp and hurried tone, Who are you? Who are these people?" Hushi stepped forward, and the purple vines in her hand flew out like streamers flying all over the sky. Fan Guangshuan was shocked, and he was about to cast a magic weapon to resist. Suddenly, a pressure made him feel terrified. He seemed to be drowned in the icy blood for a while, making him unable to move a bit. All the elders in the hall also had the same feeling. Each of them was horrified. They could only watch the purple vines released by Hushi sweeping over, but their bodies were unable to move because of the overwhelming spiritual pressure. After a while, all the elders in the hall were firmly tied up by purple vines and placed in a row in front of Hushi. Hushi walked slowly in front of Li Zhenyu, and the tip of the purple vine lifted his chin. Her cold voice was murderous. "Go ahead, Li Zhenyu. Where did you send my spiritual pets? If you tell me, I might give you a quick death." Li Zhenyu's eyes widened, staring at her closely as if looking at a monster. "You? Who are you? What are those troops?" Those are not Qingxia sect's disciples." "What are they?" "Too much nonsense." Hushi sighed softly. "I don't have the patience to listen to you." After speaking, she lightly sprinkled a handful of silver powder in her hand. Li Zhenyu's voice stopped abruptly. Chapter 1037. Bad mood. The next moment, his entire face was distorted from pain. Then he rolled on the ground frantically. While rolling, he scratched his skin and knocked his bones non-stop. He even broke his injured ribs, but he didn't seem to feel it. Hushi was satisfied that Li Zhenyu was so painful that he lost his mind, but she could no longer bother him. She turned her gaze slightly and looked at another elder. "Then now it's your turn. Can you tell me where my spiritual pets went?" No, I don't know." "What spiritual pets? I don't know what you are talking about." Before the words were finished, a sword light flashed. The elder was decapitated. Hushi squinted slightly with impatience. "I'll ask again, where are my spiritual pets?" "I'm sorry, I'm in a bad mood today and my patience is limited. If you all don't say anything, then I will have to sprinkle the medicine I used on Li Zhenyu on each of you." Hushi's words made the remaining elders of Yunlan sect almost instinctively look toward Li Zhenyu. His entire face was now bloody, and he kept bumping his head against the pillar crazily. Seeing this, there was only fear and despair in the elders' hearts. Hushi slowly took out the bottle containing the silver powder and chuckled softly. "I count to 3. Wait. Stop. I say. Fan Guangshuan finally couldn't bear it, and he said in fear, I know where your spiritual pet went. They were taken away by the elder of the Doctors' Association." "Which elder?" "Yes, it's Elder Cheng." "Elder Cheng?" Hushi frowned slightly. Qing Wan stepped forward and whispered in her ear, "Miss, Elder Cheng is the master of the previous Zhu Quebec. He is an 8th grade doctor, and has a high status in the Doctors Association. Zhu Ke's master? Hushi narrowed her eyes, and a hint of murderousness flashed in her eyes. No matter who it is, those who dare to touch my little ones should deserve to die 10,000 times. She continued to look at Fan Guangshuan. Where were they taken? I don't know. Fan Guangshuan's eyes flickered slightly, and he whispered. Li Jinyu contacted him and passed the spiritual pets to him. I don't know. I really don't know where were they sent. Hushi smiled, and the purple vine suddenly swayed. The sharp tip of the vine suddenly pierced into the chest of one of the elders. The elder let out a miserable howl. Then his blood was sucked by the purple abyss vine quickly. In the blink of an eye, he turned from a vigorous old man to a mummy. Fan Guangshuan's pupils shrank suddenly, and his body instinctively moved back, shaking constantly. Hushi narrowed her eyes and said, Do you want to become the next mummy, or you want to taste the same pain as Li Jinyu? I think medicine powder. It can make you suffer longer, right? I say, please don't kill me, don't kill me. At this time, Fan Guangshuan was utterly terrified as he no longer dared to hide. It is the Miracle Healer Academy. The Miracle Healer Academy has been collecting rare beasts. Therefore, the rare beasts we collected before will also be transferred there. Chapter 1038. Remove their root as he said. He couldn't help begging for mercy. Please let us go, we are just helping them. This has nothing to do with us. Li Jinyu came up with this idea, and your spiritual pets were also caught by him. And the elder of the Doctors Association is also contacted by him. We really don't know anything about this. Hushi's eyes flickered with a dark light, and she slowly uttered 4 words. Miracle Healer Academy. Qing Wan stepped forward and said, Miss, I know which direction Miracle Healer Academy is in. Let's go now, maybe it's still not too late. Hushi nodded and looked at Nangongyu. Nangongyu smiled slightly, stretched out his hand to rub her head, and whispered, Go, I'll take care of the rest. Hushi only felt warm in her heart. Her panicking heart was calmed because of his smile full of tolerance and pampering. As long as the man stood by her side, she felt that she had found her support and she would not fall. Hushi squeezed Nangongyu's hand. Then she cast the flying sword and flew away without stopping. Those who left with Hushi were Gu Lufeng, Qing Wan and Bai Hu. Qing Long stayed with Nangongyu. Seeing Hushi leave, the purple vines that originally bound Fan Guangshuan also disappeared like they were melted. Fan Guangshuan breathed a sigh of relief. His eyes flickered sullenly as he looked at Nangongyu and Qing Long. They were now looking at the direction that Hushi left without paying attention to them. Fan Guangshuan and the remaining elders of Yunlan's sect looked at each other, and their eyes looked vicious. In the next moment, all of them suddenly flew into the air with their magic weapons and spiritual power shining, charging at Nangongyu and Qing Long. There were more than a dozen gold core stage martial artists here, so they believed they could deal with merely 2 gold core stage cultivators. Naturally, Nangongyu had already sensed the movements of Fan Guangshuan and others. He made a cold sneer. When their attacks were about to hit him, a flash of sword light appeared from his hand. Piercing painful screams sounded all at once. Even when Fan Guangshuan's lower half body fell, he still didn't realize what had happened. At the last moment of his life, he widened his eyes and stared at Nangongyu. Nangongyu was so much taller than him at this time, and the dazzling sunlight shone on his face, reflecting that unparalleled appearance. Fan Guangshuan forgot the fear of death and the pain of his whole body for a while. He only muttered in disbelief. Hell! King of Hell, you are King of Hell. How? We just wanted to catch a few spiritual pets to get the connection with the Doctors Association and make a great contribution. We just dreamed of increasing Yunlan sect's strength to a higher level and even eventually replacing Qingxia sect as the largest sect. We just caught a few spiritual pets, but we provoked an unmatched powerhouse. I'm really unwilling. Nangongyu took back the sealed dragon sword and said lightly to Qing Long, the back mountain of the Yunlan sect has their patriarch. He just broke through the nascent soul stage a few years ago, but his realm is not stable yet and he is old. Qing Long, Go and remove their root. Qinglong was startled slightly, then he bowed his head without hesitation. Yes, master. Chapter 1039. Submissive. As soon as he answered, he turned into a blue light and disappeared into the mountains. Not many people know that Qinglong had reached the gold core stage perfect stage as early as 10 years ago. And he had been trying to break through 5 years ago. Because of his cultivation method, he had been suppressing his cultivation at the gold core stage, so that he could have a stronger strength after the breakthrough. However, his strength had gradually surpassed the nascent soul early stage master in the past few years. After the battle in the Luli sect, he even had the strength to kill the nascent soul early stage master. Under the cloudless blue sky, an ordinary-looking airship was moving fast in the sky. The aircraft was not big. There was only one cabin and 2 rooms, but the layout inside was luxurious and comfortable. At this time, in the corner of the airship room, a huge cage was placed. Inside the cage were Little Egg, Little Golden Dragon, Shaoli and Little Dumb Cow. On the side of a jade-carved seat, there was a middle-aged man with eagle eyes and high nose sitting on it. His appearance was not very eye-catching, but his hands were quite a bit longer than ordinary people. They were thin and dark. They were just as creepy as the spider legs. At this time, the middle-aged man was looking at a few small spiritual pets who were in a coma with admiration and satisfaction. Suddenly, a man's low voice came beside him. Elder Chung is really good. You actually get the spiritual pets of Xi Yue. I've fought with these spiritual pets, and they have pretty good skills. Even ordinary gold core stage martial artists will suffer a loss under their hands, but now in the hands of Elder Chung, they are so submissive. The middle-aged man immediately looked prouder as he looked at the young man next to him. The young man had clear facial features. Although he was handsome, he gave a gloomy feeling to others. It turned out to be Feng Yunjing, who appeared in Yanjing City a few days ago. It turned out that after Feng Yunjing escaped from death at the Nalan Mansion, he returned to Feng family with the body of Hall Master Zheng without stopping for a moment. Feng family was in a commotion because of the death of Hall Master Zheng and the speech prohibition art on Feng Yunjing. They also heard the rumor that Nalan Mansion was razed to the ground, so they knew that the speech prohibition art was related to the disappearance of Nalan Mansion. However, no matter what method they used, there was no way to find anything wrong with Feng Yunjing. The speech prohibition art was clearly cast, but they couldn't even trace the speech prohibition art. With this alone, they could imagine how powerful the person who raised Nalan Mansion was. The more so, the more Feng family's members wanted to know about this person from Feng Yunjing. Feng Yunjing was also worried about the speech prohibition art on his body, which was like a time bomb. If he accidentally leaked it, he would be dead like Hall Master Zheng. So in the end, the elders of the Feng family got the conclusion was that if the speech prohibition art on Feng Yunjing could really be solved by someone, then only the president of the Doctors Association, Lu Shuyang, could do it. Lu Shuyang was the most amazing genius in the entire Miluo continent except Nangongyu. He was not only proficient in medical skills, but also arrays and some rare spells. If they found Lu Shuyang, then perhaps Feng Yunjing's speech prohibition art could be solved. However, Feng Yunjing contacted the people in the Doctors Association, only to learn that Lu Shuyang was not in the association now, but he went to Miracle Healer Academy. Thus Feng Yunjing hurried over. Chapter 1040. Can even sleep like this, who knows? He happened to run into Elder Chung and the little ones he had caught. Feng Yunjing almost recognized these spiritual pets when he saw them. They were Xi Yue's. Elder Chung slightly licked his lips and said, "Why is young Master Feng so sure that these spiritual pets are Xi Yue's?" Xi Yue. Nowadays, no one in the medical field of the Miluo continent didn't know this name. Especially the elders of the Doctors Association couldn't wait to dig out the best quality pill formula and the pill refiner behind Xi Yue immediately. Feng Yunjing nodded and said, "I said that I have fought against these spiritual pets and will never recognize mistakenly. And I also know that Xi Yue treasures her spiritual pets very much, so as long as the spiritual pet is in the hands of Elder Chung, she will come to you sooner or later. And as long as Xi Yue comes, He will never escape from my hands. Elder Chung snorted coldly when he heard the words, and a murderous light flashed in his eyes. Humph. Xi Yue, just an inexperienced kid, dares to go against the Doctors' Association. I want to see how good he is. With that said, Elder Chung flicked his sleeves, got up and walked out. Feng Yunjing smiled slightly and walked out. After the two left the cabin, Little Dragon, who was in a coma in the cage, suddenly opened his eyes and looked around. After confirming that there was no one on the side, and would not be found, he hurriedly pushed the small partner beside him from behind. With a push, Xiaoli immediately opened her eyes. Her beautiful and cute smiling face was sober. She didn't look drowsy at all. After the little girl sat up, she was not panicked or excited, but she lowered her eyes with worry and contemplation. Little Golden Dragon glanced at her and didn't say anything, then turned around and pushed Little Egg and Little Dumb Cow. Who knows, these two little guys didn't even react at all. Little Golden Dragon suddenly panicked. Did old man's trick work on them? He flew toward Little Egg. As he was about to shout anxiously, a low snoring sound suddenly came into his ears. Take a closer look. Little Golden Dragon was dumbfounded. He couldn't wait to slap these two guys into pig heads. It turned out that these two little guys were not injured but fell asleep. Little Egg's pink and tender pig's nose still made a snoring sound. He really slept soundly. Little Golden Dragon raised his paws angrily and slapped their heads. Bad guy, want to fight? Little Egg leaped up and clutched his small paws into punches. He was ready to fight. Little Dumb Cow blinked his eyes and sat up stupidly. He obviously still didn't know the current situation. Little Golden Dragon slapped Little Egg's head angrily and shouted in a low voice. You're looking for a fight? Big lazy pig, you can even fall asleep like this. You might as well sleep to death. Even Xiaoli, who was worried, was amused by the cute looks of Little Egg and Little Cow's dumb looks. Little Egg rubbed his head, looked at the surroundings and suddenly became fully awake. Where are we? Why are we in the cage? Oh, Little Dragon, you're awake. Little Golden Dragon glanced at him and said, Nonsense, what, I'm awake. I didn't sleep at all. Really, if we rely on you two fools, we must be sold. Little Egg was a little embarrassed at once. He touched his paws and said stutteringly, Little Golden Dragon, don't be angry. I know I'm wrong. Don't we have to pretend to fall asleep? Isn't it more realistic to really fall asleep? Chapter 1041. Inform Miss. Little Golden Dragon snorted coldly. He still put up a stern face, but he somewhat softened his attitude. You guys should be alert to me. This old man is a master of nascent soul stage. I also saw that pervert Feng Yunjing also came. We aren't their opponents when they join forces. If some of us are injured, how should we explain to boss when we go back? Xiaoli frowned immediately upon hearing this. She said anxiously, Miss can't find us. She must be worried about us now. Little Egg heard that Hushi would be worried, and he immediately said with a flat mouth, Will Mom be angry? She is most unhappy that we risked wildly and put ourselves in danger. Mom will definitely ignore us when we go back. Little Golden Dragon also said with a bitter face, The point is that we didn't leave any message to boss before disappearing. It's strange if boss is not worried. It turned out that when these four little ones went to Yangon City to buy things in the morning, but they were ambushed by Li Zhenyu and Yunlan Sect's people in a remote alley. No matter how small the enmity was, they would revenge no matter how. Li Zhenyu wanted to harm Hushi numerous times, and now he even wanted to rob them. How could these little ones let them go easily? So when Li Zhenyu and the others spilled the medicinal powder, Little Golden Dragon and the others pretended to faint and were carried back to Yunlan Sect by them. But in fact, this kind of knockout drug was not a problem for Little Egg, who had countless kinds of antidote in his body. Although the poison was detoxified, Little Golden Dragon and the others pretended to be unconscious and went to Yunlan Sect along the way. When everyone in Yunlan Sect relaxed their vigilance, they suddenly rushed out and relied on their agile movements to fool those Yunlan Sect's disciples and elders around. Yunlan Sect clearly had more than a dozen gold core stage masters, but they were all flustered. When they nearly caught the little ones, they escaped from their hands. The entire Yunlan sect was in chaos. During the period, they stole a lot of treasures. Fan Guangshuan was infuriated. It was a pity that happiness breeds sorrow. Just when the little ones were done fooling them, and were about to leave Yunlan sect, an old man riding an aircraft descended from the sky. This old man turned out to be a master at the nascent soul stage. Although Little Egg had good skills, they were already overwhelmed to deal with the dozen of gold core stage martial artists with their endless strange techniques. Facing the nascent soul stage master, how could they fight back? The old man even sprinkled a more advanced knockout drug on them. Even Little Egg and Xiaoli almost fainted when they inhaled it. If Little Egg didn't let the others take the antidote quickly, they would really fall asleep now. However, because they did not have the power to resist, all of them were stuffed into a special cage by the old man. Little Egg originally wanted to let Little Dumb Cow use teleport to escape, but he couldn't do it. Just when the little guys were at a loss, there was a chattering voice from the window. As soon as Xiaoli looked up, she saw a colorful hummingbird resting on the window edge, chirping at her. Xiaoli's eyes suddenly lit up, and she was overjoyed and said, "It's Little Hummingbird. Great, I have a way to notify Miss." After listening to Xiaoli's instructions, the hummingbird flew out of the window and disappeared into the sky. Chapter 1042, Long Admiration. Little Egg looked at Xiaoli with admiration and said with shining eyes, "Sister Xiaoli, you are so smart and amazing. Why do birds listen to you?" Xiaoli's face blushed slightly and she whispered, "I hope Little Hummingbird can inform Mississippi." Little Egg suddenly thought of something, and he said anxiously, "But that pervert is here too, how? If Mom comes, she will be bullied by that pervert again?" Xiaoli couldn't help but curiously asked, "What is pervert?" "Pervert means very, very bad. Very wretched and annoying." Little Egg clenched his small fists and said angrily, "Every time that pervert sees Mom, he wants to take advantage of Mom. He is really bad." Xiaoli let out a cry and covered her face. Her clear eyes were full of confusion and worry. "What should we do then?" Little Golden Dragon sneered, "Don't worry, have you forgotten that boss still has your daddy with her? Nangong Yu is amazing. He can definitely teach that pervert Feng Yunjing a lesson. I'm afraid he will leave now." Hushi knew from the very beginning that Xiaoli had the ability to communicate with animals, so when she saw the spiritual hummingbird chirping around her nonstop, she immediately followed the spiritual hummingbird. The speed of the spiritual hummingbird was extremely fast, and the speed of Hushi's flying sword had reached its limit. However, within the time of an incense, they caught with the aircraft flying ahead. When Hushi and the others approached the aircraft, Elder Chung and Feng Yunjing immediately sensed it. Feng Yunjing's eyes looking at Hushi were full of possessiveness. After knowing the true identity of Xi Yue, he wanted to get this woman even more. He wanted to own her body and the secret on her. Elder Chung looked up and down this beautiful young man with unkind eyes. It was this man who let his talented disciple Zhu Que lose power in the King of Hell mansion, and even died. It was also the Shengda Hall ran by this man that caused the Doctors Association to fall into an unprecedented crisis. If he brought this person back to the Doctors Association, the president and other elders would be very happy. Thinking of this, he took a step forward and slowly smiled. "Mr. Shi, I really admire your name for a long time." Hushi said solemnly with a cold face, "Where are my spiritual pets?" "Your spiritual pets are naturally well received in the cabin." Feng Yunjing intercepted the elder words and said in a low tone, "Shiyu, if you want to see the spiritual pets, come on in this aircraft now." Hushi chuckled, but her eyes were full of murderousness. "Good. Very good. You better not let me see my spiritual pets being hurt." As soon as she finished, she flew into the sky. Instead of rushing toward the aircraft, she pointed the Li Shui sword in the sky and slashed down abruptly. Feng Yunjing had seen Hushi's flying flower sword rain, but he didn't take it seriously. However, when the sword rain fell from the sky, the entire flying boat shook violently. The protective shield that originally covered the flying boat shattered, and the doctors who served Elder Chung on the flying boat screamed and fell onto the deck. Everything on the flying boat was swaying, and even the things in the cabin slipped out because of the shock. Ah, I'm going to fall. Wah. Stupid cow, move away. Stupid pighead and dumb cow, be careful not to hurt Xiaoli. Because of this violent shaking, a huge cage rolled out of the cabin and hit the ship's side heavily. A few familiar voices came out from the cage. Chapter 1043. Really bold when her eyes fell on Little Egg and other little guys, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Little Egg, who was thrown dizzy, grabbed the cage and stood up. Seeing Hushi not far away, he suddenly cried out in surprise. Moom, you are finally here. Little Golden Dragon and Xiaoli also straightened up happily, looked at Hushi and shouted, Miss/Boss. Elder Chung and Feng Yunjing, who had finally stabilized the swaying flying boat on the deck, looked ugly, and they looked at Hushi with scrupulous. Feng Yunjing's gaze became more scorching. His figure suddenly flashed and appeared before Hushi. His presumptuous eyes were full of lust and domineering. He looked up and down Hushi's beautiful face, then he said hoarsely, I didn't expect your cultivation to improve by a lot after we parted for a few months. Should I be surprised by your amazing talents, or should I be curious about what kind of adventure you have gotten? Within just half a year, how did you turn from a useless person without cultivation into a genius that can rival the gold core stage martial artists? Hushi squinted slightly, and a hint of shock flashed past his eyes. The meaning of Feng Yunjing's words doesn't seem simple. What does he know? Feng Yunjing laughed and said, Or I shouldn't call you Xi Yue but, Nalan Hushi? When he said this, Feng Yunjing's eyes were fixed on Hushi's face, wanting to see panic from her face. However, he was disappointed. Hushi slowly sneered. Feng Yunjing, your news is really good. Since you have found out that my name is Nalan Hushi, do you see who raised Nalan family to the ground? When Hushi said this, Feng Yunjing shivered instinctively. The man in red clothes that made him surrender and feel fear and despair seemed to appear before him again. The speech prohibition art that made him feel threatened all the time also got into his mind. His face turned gloomy, and he said coldly, Xi Yue, you escaped from my hands in breaking Spirit Mountain last time, but this time, you are not so lucky. No matter how much your cultivation has improved, you aren't my opponent. This time, I will let you be my woman immediately. Before Feng Yunjing finished his words, he hurriedly backed away in shock. But it was too late. He only felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. A piece of meat and bone was sliced off by a sword aura. The white bones and gushing blood made Feng Yunjing's face distorted. He stared at the figure behind Hushi. A tall man appeared behind Hushi from nowhere. Then he hugged Hushi into his arms with his long arm. Nangongyu. Feng Yunjing gritted his teeth and spit out these three words. Pain, hatred and fear intertwined and surged into his heart, causing his face to turn hideous. The person was naturally Nangongyu, who had eliminated Yunlan's sect and caught up with Hushi. Nangongyu hugged Hushi lightly, but his eyes with a hint of smile fell on Feng Yunjing. That smile obviously looked gentle, but it always gave a sense of creepy horror. His slender finger gently stroked Hushi's temple hair as he said slowly, Feng Yunjing, you are so bold. Ever since the incident in breaking Spirit Mountain, I didn't settle the account with you, but you come to me yourself. It seems that you really can't wait to die immediately. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.